Welcome to my recap of the Bassmaster Open at Lake Eufaula. Just going to share a little bit about what worked for me, what didn't, and the overall experience, what I learned, what I did well, what I could have done better. First of all, Lake Eufaula, Oklahoma, incredibly large lake, over 105,000 acres. Never been there before, never seen it before. There's not a ton of information out there. There is some, not necessarily for this time of year. Early summer proved to be a challenge there. There was obviously some quality fish to be caught. And there was a lot of fish to be caught. It was just tough to get on a consistent quality bite throughout the week and the event. I chose to break it down into a couple of the smaller sections. It didn't take very long to learn in the first day of practice that it was going to fish incredibly small, even though it's such a large body of water. I would say 60 to 70% of the lake was pretty much dead water, at least from what I found. I did try to make some long runs the first day and a half of practice just to keep it honest and make sure. I wanted to go check out some muddy water opportunities far enough away that it wouldn't get pounded by a lot of pressure, and basically trying to find that little honey hole, needle in a haystack type of opportunity. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a large population of fish. I was able to get a few very quality bites way downriver in a few creeks, but there just wasn't a lot of fish there and nothing that you could rely on to have an opportunity to win a tournament. So I basically quickly refocused my efforts to some of the cleaner water areas, and again, it fished very small. It was everywhere you went was very crowded. You know, you got over 200 of the top anglers at this level, and with the electronics and everything else now, everyone finds the goods, everyone finds the same type of stuff. And finding, for an ordinary guy like me without the experience and without as many of the advanced electronics that are available today, I really had to focus on what I thought I could do the best at and how I could separate myself some. I ended up focusing shallow water. Very quickly found a boat dock bite, which a lot of guys did. I had to separate myself a little bit. I quickly noticed a lot of guys were fishing finesse worms, some finesse baits, some jigs, and I tried all that, got a lot of bites, a lot of small fish though. And a couple days into practice, I kind of went out on a whim. I went and switched to a giant magnum shaky head worm. I had been catching a lot of fish and some quality fish on some finesse worms and Drastic Plastics stick baits, Senko style baits. Could get a lot of bites, but didn't really get a lot of those big fish that you really need to separate yourselves. And I had a magnum worm tied on for some brush pile fishing that I was experimenting with and had a few good bites on it. So I thought, why not try flipping this around the boat docks? And with the live scope, I was quickly able to identify what kind of boats they wanted to be around, what kind of brush piles and structure needed to be around these boats and the water depth, and I could watch how the fish reacted to the different baits. And I quickly found that upsizing to this Magnum worm really helped me produce some better quality bites in that 3 to 5 pound range. And it ended up being successful. I ran into a little bit of bad luck on the first day of the tournament. I had 3 quality fish for 7.5 pounds, and I ended up having a fluke deal. I had a 5 pounder come up. I walked him away from the boat dock, got him into what I thought was a safe area, and randomly in the middle of nowhere pretty much, there was a metal pole underwater that he wrapped around 3 times, and he just would not calm down and sit still. I was working my way over to him to get him undone, and he just kept sawing and going crazy. And you know, unfortunate, he ended up sawing me off, breaking me off. Nothing I could have done about it. Just one of those deals with fishing. But it was a little bit of a heartbreaker. And then the next problem I ended up running into is my setup here was I was using takedown shaky heads from Picasso Lures. The problem I ran into switching to these Magnum worms was I ran out of the right size as far as hook size. All I had were the 3/0s, and really needed, with these Magnum worms, I really like to use the 4 and 6/0 hooks. And with these smaller 3/0 hooks, you have a much smaller bite gap here. When I thread them, I leave the, not sure how well you can see that, but I leave the hook point sticking out. I just thread it on so it's nice and straight. That hook point lays right on top. It stays nice and protected. You can carefully work it through the cover just fine. But what happened, I ended up losing 4 fish between 3 and 5 pounds on day 1. And what I think was happening, I wasn't doing anything wrong with that smaller hook size. I think sometimes when they grabbed it, they would double that bait over, and now that hook point, there's not enough bite gap there with that bait doubled over, and I'd be able to fight them almost all the way to the boat before they finally let go, and I never truly got that hook through. And I think if I had prepared better for it and this wasn't something I was planning on doing, just something I stumbled on while I was there. If I had switched to a 4/0 to 6/0 size, preferably the 6/0, I would have had no problem hooking and landing those fish. So lesson learned, that was my bad, not having enough of the proper tackle. But you just never know what you're going to get into in these deals. Wasn't something I went into planning on doing, other than offshore. And just unfortunate. A little bit of bad luck, a little bit of bad planning, and could have been a whole lot different outcome on day 1. Use 17 pound Vicious 100% fluoro. Basically on all my key baits. That was my number 1 setup there, my number 1 program. There was fish both deep and shallow. The problem with the deep fish I found was there just wasn't large concentrations. The brush piles, some key rock piles offshore. You'd find groups of 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 quality fish, and that's just not enough fish to really get them competing and get them fired up. So you either got lucky and triggered one just right and got a really good quality bite, or they were really tough to catch compared to normal summertime fishing anyways. 2 of my search baits for shallow water fish, rocks were a big key. Shallow rock points, banks, irregularities. There's rocks everywhere on Eufaula. Another bait I had success on was the old swing head jig. I was using a 3/4 ounce Picasso Lures swing head jig, and I switched out the hook to a Hayabusa 4/0 EWG hook, and this is a Drastic Plastics thumper bug, one of my favorites for this technique. That bait, there's just a ton of action. Same thing as using a square bill crankbait pretty much. I just like the different action this provides. Really great search tool. You can cover a lot of water. Had some really good bites on it in practice, just not a ton of bites. So I used it a lot to find fish. It just didn't end up being something that I stuck with throughout the tournament enough. I probably should have thrown it more than I did. I think one of the reasons was these fish were really keyed in on shad and small bait fish. So one of the things I think I could have done better was throwing a jerk bait more. I did end up catching a keeper on a jerk bait on day 2 and throughout the week. One of the reasons I didn't stick with it is Eufaula is full, I mean chock full of gar, big gar, and I probably lost $150 worth of jerk baits or more to gar, and as an ordinary guy, that hurts a little, that stings a little. So I kind of shied away from it. I got tired of losing baits and retying, and but something I really should have stuck with more, being more aggressive with the live scope and seeking out those fish. But again, that's not something I have a ton of experience with yet. Working on it, getting better at it. Yeah, I probably gave up on that too soon. Deep water, I had three things going. I had deep water shaky head and brush piles. And then I was also using a football jig. This is a 3/4 ounce Picasso. I think it's the HD football head. 3/4 ounce Drastic Plastics crawl trailer there. Big flappers, a lot of movement, really pushes a lot of water, draws a lot of attention. I found 4 spots that ended up kind of disappointing me in the tournament. I had 4 spots I found the last 2 days of practice. One especially the last morning of practice that I caught a 4-pounder off of each, and there was 3 to 5 fish with them that I did not stick on purpose, planning to go back to them. And for whatever reason in the tournament, I couldn't get those fish to fire. I checked on them several times. A couple times they weren't even there. A couple times they were there, but they were very bait shy. It was hard to figure out how to get them to commit, get them to bite. Day 1 was perfect. Caught fish all day. Had bright, hot, sunny skies, and which is perfect for the boat docks thing that I was doing. Really made those fish predictable, easy to know how they were going to set up and how to present the bait properly to them. Caught just a ton of fish. Like I said, unfortunately had a few of those mishaps that really kept me from, I easily could have been out there in the top 10 range after day 1. But that's fishing. Day 2, that night we had storms roll through and possible storms all the next day. Ended up not storming, but it was cloudy, overcast, completely different conditions, and those boat dock fish just don't fire as well, don't set up as well. So I ended up taking a gamble. Day 2 the morning, I ran about 30 miles downriver, hoping to catch lightning in a bottle and trigger 2 or 3 of those big fish that I had found, even though there wasn't a big number of fish. And it just didn't pan out. So that ended up being a waste of gas, a waste of time. Spent about an hour down there on those 2 or 3 spots. Caught a few fish, but did not get any big fish to fire. So we ran all the way back and started running some stuff. I ended up catching a little over a 3-pounder on a boat dock that I had saved from the day before. I went back to where I lost some, those 4 big keepers. Those fish weren't set up right. I could see them, but they wouldn't fire. And then I just started running around trying a little bit of everything just to get bit. I ended up catching a fish on a jerk bait. I think I had 2 fish for 4.5 pounds. Gave me a little over 12 pounds for the tournament, which had me sitting clear down in 131st place. So a little bit disappointing. But I learned a ton from this event. One thing that's going to haunt me a little bit, early in practice, I had a little thing going. I caught some quality fish on, but it really pushed my patience to the max because this lake has so many white bass in it. I was fishing a Demiki style rig, even though I was using just this is a custom ball head jig that I have made by Jeff at Backyard Baitshop. This is a Drastics special color of mine. This is what I use to catch all my wipers and white bass here at home, and something I've really been wanting to get better at on how to transform it over to the bass fishing side. And going out over these brush piles in deep water and getting through the schools to the bass, this is how the eventual winner, huge shout out to Joey Nanya, Joey Fishing. If you want to check him out, check out his tournament videos. Got some great footage. He has some great fish. But I basically just ran out of patience with it, just because you caught so many white bass and just felt like you were wasting your time. And after watching what he was doing, he basically was just letting his bait fall through the fish no matter how many times they bit and grabbed his bait. He just kept shaking it through them, letting them drop it. And eventually his bait got down to where the 2 or 3 bass, which that's all there were. There wasn't giant schools of bass down there. There's giant schools of white bass. But as far as the big largemouth, you'd see 1, 2, 3 big ones just sitting down below them waiting on, I don't know if they were taking advantage of the white bass and just letting them, taking advantage of the injured ones, if they were feeding on the white bass themselves, which is most likely. They were just waiting on the easy opportunity, and when the white bass got too close, they just jump up and grab an easy meal. But this is definitely a rig that I want to get more practice and more work at. I caught a few nice fish in practice. Like I said, I lost patience. I got tired of weeding through all the white bass and didn't stick with it. And this proved once again to be a very, very deadly technique and something I definitely need to work on. Other than that, it was a great event. I wasn't upset with how I performed at all. You know, just an ordinary guy trying to give it a shot against these guys that have been doing it much longer than I have at this level, that's for sure. Got way more experience. Second event in a row, I felt like I found the quality of fish to compete for a top 10 finish, and just a few key adjustments, a little bit of fortune, a little bit of better decision making and fishing execution on my part, and we'd have been right there. But huge shout out, thanks to my family for allowing me to even attempt and try to do this adventure. Thanks to all my great sponsors, and we'll see what happens at the next one. We got a fun one coming up soon. I'm gonna fish the St. Lawrence River as a co-angler. Just that's gonna be my one fun event for the year. Just the most incredible smallmouth fishery on the planet. I couldn't pass it up. I'm gonna go up there and have some fun, beat up on some big brown fish, and just fish that one for fun. No pressure. Don't care what happens. Just gonna have fun beating up some big smallmouth. And then we're gonna, our last Bassmaster Open event will be at Lake of the Ozarks. Really looking forward to that one. Should be a good time, good event. I have a little bit of experience there. It'll be the first lake that I've actually been to before and fished before. Not so much in the fall like when we're going to be there. Most of my experience is there in the spring. But there's a lot that I can take from those experiences and transfer over to the fall time, and I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, summertime baits, the swing head jig, Drastic Plastics lumper bug. Don't be afraid to switch up, go to giant, magnum sized, shaky head trick worms, and of course stick baits, Cinco style baits. You can get bit anywhere in the country, whether you're wacky rigging it or I was throwing them on a shaky head this week. And vicious fishing line as always. And my eye rods, I guess I could tell you a little bit about what I was using for my rods. For my jig rod, as always, my favorite rod, the Gen 3 744 medium, 744 heavy. My favorite jig rod. I use this rod for a ton of different things: big worms, jigs, football jigs. Just my favorite all-around rod. That 744 Irod Gen 3, just an amazing rod. For the swing head, for my swing head fishing, I was using this is the Gen 2 series, but same thing in the Gen 3. This is the Crank Launch Junior. I use this both for smaller crankbaits, from anywhere from like my 15-foot divers and smaller. But I have also found that it is a perfect matchup for this swing head jig. Very, very good rod. I can do a lot of different things with this rod. That's the Crank Launch Junior. And then my bread and butter this week, what I caught most of my fish on and what I use for most of my flipping techniques. I'm a shorter guy at 5'6", 5'7". So I like a shorter rod. This is a Gen 3 704 heavy. So it's a 7-foot rod. Got just a little bit of tip to it, but a ton of backbone, a ton of power. I like the shorter 7-foot rod, especially around boat docks and heavy cover. I can really put it in those tight places and be very accurate with my pitches, flips, and casts. I like the shorter rod for that. 7 foot is still plenty long enough, plenty of power to drag those big fish out. But I like that little bit shorter rod just to improve the accuracy and to get in there. And then whether you're bass fishing, wiper fishing, white bass fishing, when I use, I don't have the rod here sitting here with me, but my setup for the Demiki rig, I use a 7.2 Irod Air Series or the 610. Both are 2-power rods. They got a lot of tip to them, a lot of parabolic bend to them, but they still have plenty of backbone when you need the backbone. I throw that on 15-pound no fade braid from Vicious with a the Tora. It's an 11-pound fluorocarbon leader, but it's 8-pound diameter, and that Tora that has been money, being able to go to that bigger power line, but having the smaller diameter, the same as 8, 7, and 8 in most other companies, has proven to be my favorite setup so far. So using that fluorocarbon leader with that no fade braid combo is great. Something I definitely need to work on and get better at on the bass fishing side. I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now for wipers and white bass here at home, and I've got to get out there and put more work into it, to the bass side of things. I don't think it'll be a tough transition, just something I need to put more time into. And I appreciate you guys following along. That's kind of my recap, what I learned. You know, the clearer water proved to be a key there. The shallow rocks, the shallow points, the boat docks. Unfortunately, there just aren't a lot of boat docks. There's a good number of boat docks there, but the key docks and the key depths, had the sun came out again the second day, I think I could have caught a big bag again. But there's not a ton of opportunities there, like places such as the Ozarks and whatnot. But those shallow rocks, the brush piles and stuff out deep, played a little bit. They just weren't quite out there yet, not in the school size that you need to take advantage of summertime fishing. But yeah, we learned a lot. I'm excited to get to the next ones and continue learning on this journey, and hopefully we'll have a more successful story coming up soon. We're learning, we're competing, we're trying, and when it's meant to be, something good's going to happen, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again for following along, for all your support, and we'll see you soon.